Welcome to Life's Issues with Lloyd Rosen, where the discussion will be about issues that affect people on a daily basis. Life's Issues is brought to you by the Tough Talk Radio Network. Now here's your host, Lloyd Rosen.
Happy Thursday and welcome to another edition of Life's Issues with Lloyd Rosen here. 1 week closer to Christmas and the end of 2014. And we start to look forward to 2015 and what that has in store for us. But for today, I have two great guests on, and we'll get to them in just a minute.
Are you one of those people who deal with issues that life throws at you on a daily basis? Then you need to tune into Life's Issues to hear Lloyd Rosen get the answers to those nagging problems. Begin to turn your life into that positive journey you've always wanted. You've always had the ability. Now get the information to complete the journey. Tune in every Thursday afternoon at 1:30 p.m. Central Time to hear Lloyd ask the questions that get the answers you are looking for. Lloyd wants to help those that are dealing with life's issues. Check out Lloyd's blog at lloydrosen.com for more information about daily problems.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Life's Issues. We are lucky today. As I said earlier, we had two great guests on. We just heard from Chris Sprague, who spoke about the 0 point and was able to teach you how to find out what your true place on this earth was and is to make it a better one and make your life a better life. My second guest today is a young lady who I will say I was looking at her biography today on her website, and she was born in the hills of the Appalachia, surrounded by beautiful mountains, refreshing springs, and southern hospitality. And she writes that it's a place so peaceful that it resounds of all that God intended for the beauty of His creation. Unfortunately, she did not have that opportunity to enjoy it as most other people would. She had an experience as a child that had caused her to stay silent and live in darkness until she found the strength to come out and speak out about it. When she did, she wrote a book called The Shattering, and which is written in a fiction perception, but is a very true story, and I cannot wait to get into it with Marsha Barth. Marsha, how are you?
Oh, hi, Lloyd. I'm very well, thank you, and thank you very much for having me on your show.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I think that this topic is something that definitely needs to be brought out into the open and not hidden behind the dark walls and kept silent any longer. I read your bio. I read your website. I do know what the situation was with you as far as growing up is concerned. Let me ask you this question. What age did it start and did it end?
Well, actually, I was 4 years old when my grandfather sexually abused me. I don't have much memory from that incident, but I do know that it happened. I know the terror that I felt going into the coal bin, even when I was an adult. But it started pretty bad with my dad at the age of 8, probably till I was about 14, till I was old enough to stop him.
Okay. Let me ask another question, which is coming from me. You said it started at 4 with your grandfather.
Yes.
And then it went all the way to 14 with your father.
Yes.
So is what they had that caused them to do what they did to you, I don't want to use the word hereditary because there's too many other things in this world that our parents do give us that are not that negative. But in this situation, is that something that's passed on genetically or inherently or how?
I think what happens is that when a soul is so shattered, I personally believe that my grandfather abused my father. I know for a fact that he abused other members of the family without bringing them into this. I respect their privacy and the way they deal with it. But I do know for a fact that I wasn't the only one. He almost went to jail one time for doing it to a neighbor girl. But the thing is that when a person is so shattered, if they don't get help, if they don't heal, if they don't overcome, it will either all that has to go somewhere, all that anger, and they will either reflect it out or they will reflect it in. But either way, it will be very destructive. For me, until I healed from what I went through, I directed it inward. As a child, I often thought of committing suicide. I used to pray and say, God, if life is this bad at 12 or 13 and I live to be 70, how will I ever make it? But I directed mine inward, which a lot of people do. We know that the third leading cause, and I'm not saying this is one of the causes, but I'm saying all the causes, but it's probably one of the causes in our society today. Every 2 minutes in America, there's a sexual abuse. Every 2 minutes. And that's a high percentage. And what happens is, if people don't heal from that, the third leading cause of suicide in young people, the third leading cause of death in young people is suicide. I'm not saying this is the only reason. I'm just saying when there's any kind of abuse, and I'm talking about sexual abuse, you have a physical abuse, you have emotional abuse. There's so many other kinds of abuses that aren't even in those statistics. So when you have all this and it shatters the person, what will they do with that anger? They will either direct it outwards and become an abuser, or they will overcome it. And if they're an abuser, they can be an abuser to themselves, or they can become a victor. Do we become an abuser from what happened to us, or do we become a victor from it? That's the choices.
Right. I mean, being an abuser, I totally get it in the sense that just because you're an abuser doesn't mean that you're always abusing other people. You could be abusing yourself.
Exactly.
And that makes perfect sense. Let's talk about your book for a minute. How long ago did you write it?
It was released last October of 2013.
Okay, so basically it starts from an early age, I suspect, and takes you through your life right up to a certain point at where you decided to cut it off.
It does, and I've actually had a tremendous response to it, so much that I've been requested to write a sequel to it. So I have the sequel about 2/3 done. The first book, this will deal with abuse. It's written in novel form, but it's very easy reading, so when people read it, they read a story. I'm actually Julie in the book. I should point that out. I always forget that. I did change the names in the books. So instead of Marsha in the book, I am referred to as Julie. But it's very easy reading. You just read. There's times you'll laugh. There's times you cry. But has a very good ending. Tell people say it's too deep for me. I say book signings. I say it has a good ending.
and that's something that I want to point out here. Whether you will point it out again or not, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that it has to have a good ending, because you are alive, you are here to talk about it, and you are here to save more lives that have been going through silently like you did.
Yes.
So, I suffered from depression, tried to kill myself twice. I get what you're saying. You live a certain life. You had the sexual abuse. I had the depression. We all live in silence, and we all think we're the only ones. And we know when we get healthy, we're not. And that's why we all, me included, want to get out and help people straighten out their lives, because we know how much pain it is to live with the agony. So
yes, exactly. And the thing is what I have found, and maybe you have found this too, what I have found, it is so surprising. It seems like a given, but it is so surprising that people think in all aspects of their life, in every walk of life, whether they're a Christian or whether they're not a Christian, or whether they believe in God or whether they don't, whether they choose drug to medicate with or whether they take, whatever they do, the surprising thing I find talking to people is they do not believe that they can be healed from this. They do not believe that they can ever get past all the hurt and pain. And my message is, you can. That's the thing that people don't know. They put it under the rug, and then they stumble through life because they have a lumpy carpet, and they live with the pain instead of healing from the pain. And when I go into the prisons, because I visit the prisons, I've done that for the last 8 years. I've been in prisons here locally. I've been in prisons in Maui. I've been in prisons in Kauai. And when I go in and I speak to the women, it's very rewarding, but it's very heart-rending because they look so surprised when you tell them you do not have to carry the hurt and pain that you've carried in your life. You do not have to carry that the rest of your life. And then they want to know, well, how do I get past that? And then I talk to them about that. But that's the main thing. It's a journey. Healing is a journey. But you can't heal unless you deal with it. You have to deal to heal to feel again.
And I will tell you that that's one of the reasons that I do what I do, and I speak out about my issues with the depression and the suicide. Because when I was dealing with it, I thought it was normal. I would get up every day and live my life every day for 36 years thinking that everybody lived like this. It was normal for me at my age to be dealing with this. And then when I found out that it wasn't, that's when I decided that I was going to write the book that I've written and speak out about it, because people have to be aware that it is curable, it is healable, you can get over it, and that somebody who I may touch their life doesn't have to live with it for 36 years like I did. Because, as you know, 36 years is not a day and a half.
No.
It's a long time. So give us a little brief scenario of the book so people get an idea of what they can get out of the book when they read it.
Well, the book is called The Shattering, and it's by Marsha Barth, that's me, and it's a true story. It's my true story. More than another story of victimization, it's a story of the joy of overcoming. It's a story of the power of love, the promise of hope, and the inspiration of knowing that what has happened in our lives does not define who we are.
Well put. What happens to us in our lives, let me make perfectly clear, and I think you'll agree with me. What happens to us in our lives definitely does not identify who we are, because a lot of what happens to us in our lives are caused by other people, whether they be bullies at school or whether they be your parents who think that they want to control you. So you should never think that what's happening to you is your destiny in life, because it's not.
But so many people do, Lloyd, and that's the other point I try to make strongly when I do interviews or when I talk to people or I go into the prisons, is that you look at people and they're broken down, their self-esteem, their self-identity, their feeling of valueless, their worthlessness. All of this has came on them like a cloak, and many of them don't even know it. They need to know that they matter. Some people have never really mattered to anyone. They thought they have, and then they get their heart broke, and then they get shattered, and then they get their trust broken. And after a while, and I see this in the girls in prison a lot, I see this with men I've talked to, too, at the book signings and at different functions. People need to know that they matter. They need to know that if they were beat down all their life, verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually, domestic abuse, the same thing, that is not who you are. You are not a worthless person. You are not a valueless person. You are a person that matters. You are a person who, you are not what the abuser and the abusers have defined you to be. You're more than that.
And that is exactly, you're absolutely right. That's the point we got to get across to people, because they can't live every day of their life thinking that the way the abuser made them feel is how they really are, and they're not going to be any different. They need to know that they would be.
If they can't be told that and be made known the realization of that point alone, they can never start on the path to healing from victim to victor.